Welcome to Weeds and Wilds Conversations. Today's guest spent 33 years on the front lines of law enforcement, investigating over 300 homicide and death cases, navigating the peak of the crack epidemic in Richmond, California. While he was fighting for justice on the streets, he was also fighting a silent internal battle against the ghosts of his own past. Today, retired homicide detective Daryl Jackson opens up about surviving childhood domestic violence, a devastating personal loss, and the reality of dealing with PTSD behind the badge. This is a story about the true cost of justice, but more importantly, it is a story about survival, healing, and finding peace.
Yes. So you have lived a life that has afforded you a lot of noteworthy experiences. But before I go into, questioning you, can you introduce yourself a little bit?
Yeah, my name is Daryl Jackson. Um, Grew up in Richmond, California, though I was not born here. I was actually born in Boise, Idaho.
Okay.
My parents were leaving Louisiana. My father had just gotten out the military, and his brothers, one of his brothers, he was one of nine. One of the brothers was working up at the base in Idaho. And so my parents drove from Louisiana to Idaho. Within a year of being there, I was born. But now, as an adult, I made my way to the public safety realm back in 1984.
Okay.
And I started off in Alameda County at the probation department. Left there after about two and a half years. Went to Richmond Police Department. At Richmond PD, did patrol. I was their personnel recruiting background officer. I then went to investigations. They started me off in robbery assault. I was there for about 10 months, and then they moved me to homicide.
Okay.
Homicide for approximately 5 years. I had worked in the community policing unit because the city of Richmond had just started that in 2000 or 1998. So when I came out of homicide after five and a half years, they asked me to go to community policing. I did that working out of De Anza High School, Parkchester Village, and Shields Reed.
Okay.
And the Hartnets.
I worked at Shields Reed before too. I didn't know you ever worked there.
I was assigned there as a community policing officer. I was a pursuit driving instructor and a training officer for new officers.
Okay. So what was life like for you growing up in Richmond? Because you lived with your parents and it was just you and your brother, was it? Or did you have more siblings?
We eventually had another, my mother and father had a daughter. My sister is 6 years younger than me.
Okay.
And growing up in Richmond, when they came out to California, my mother is one of 13 kids.
Wow.
And his brothers and sisters. And it was a mesh of family because some of them were half brothers and sisters, but the bulk of them were living in Richmond.
Okay.
So my mom came out. We ended up living with one of my aunts for a while. My father had gotten a job working for the government in their transportation department. My mother, bounced around to different jobs that she could find. We lived in Easter Hill for a bit. So living with my first aunt, it was on the south side of Richmond. I do remember that. Then we moved to Easter Hill. Then sometime after that, my mom and dad both got a job working for our government, but they had to move to Stockton. So we moved to Stockton for a little while. And I remember I went to, I think the third, fourth, and fifth grade was in Stockton.
Okay. Okay.
Then I went to, then they moved back to Richmond. I, uh, we lived in Terre Hills. My parents rented a house in Terre Hills. I was there just for 1 year. I went to the sixth grade there.
Mm.
And then my junior high and high school, I went to Juan Crespi because they had moved back to the Richmond city limits. And I went to Juan Crespi Junior High School for, the 7th, 8th, and then from 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th, I went to De Anza. So I'm a
Okay.
graduate of De Anza High School.
Okay. 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 And so, how was relationship with parents? Did you had like a good solid foundation and relationship at home, or what was home life like?
As a kid, and even up into my late teens, my mother has always been great. My mother is my hero. She would do anything. She worked 2 jobs to make sure that me, my brother, and my sister didn't need for anything. My father, you know, he was in the home, but not in the home. He was spent a lot of time on the street. He had a couple different girlfriends here and there. I remember that, even as young as I guess whatever age you are in about the 5th grade, 4th, 5th grade. And there was there's significant amount of domestic violence going on between my mom and dad during that time of my life.
Okay.
And up into my senior year in high school, that's when my father and my mother, he finally moved out of the house and they divorced soon thereafter. But it was always, I mean, I have a lot of memories of my mom getting beat by my dad. A couple times my mother thought she was going to die and call us in the room. The police were never called.
Wow.
She never ever thought about that at all.
Wow.
She would just accept it, heal, and just keep going. But at no time did she ever take it out on us or anything like that. She was a strong, very strong person in her
Okay.
faith and beliefs and family.
Yeah.
And she knew at any given time she can go to her sisters or her brothers, and probably things would have been a lot different. I never will forget when I was a kid. I must have been in the 5th grade because we had moved out. We had moved out in Richmond at the time. My father had bought me my first pellet rifle or BB gun, and I was sitting in the family room watching Scooby Doo on TV. I remember I grabbed the pellet rifle, pointed at the TV, and pulled the trigger. And I guess I didn't know if I'd actually. I don't remember if I knew it was loaded or not. Pulled the trigger. BB came out and hit the TV screen. And that
Uh-oh.
was the old school TVs with a big glass tube.
Yeah.
Oh my God. And I put a hole in it. My mother knew my father was going to kill me.
Uh-oh.
He was just going to lose it. So she rushed me to Richmond to
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
stay with one of her older sisters. Because
Oh, wow.
her husband was a massive guy. My Uncle Roy was a big, big dude. And
Yeah.
but besides that, they had four sons and 3 daughters of their own. So my first cousins. So my mother knew my father wasn't coming down there.
Okay.
So
Okay.
she sent me there, and I ended up staying with my aunt for about, I don't know, about a week and a half
Yeah.
before I came back home. Um,
Did he address it once you got back home, or was it just like moving forward?
you know what? I don't remember him ever talking to me about it. Um, but I don't recall that because my father and I mean, we've had our bouts. You know what I mean? Not that it was always, it was never really physical between he and I, but one time. But that's when I was a senior in high school. And I was just coming back home from football practice or basketball practice. I don't remember which one it was, but it was late afternoon, early evening. And as I was coming into the court, my mother ran out of the house and said, Daryl, hurry up, your dad is biting your brother. I said, he's biting my brother? So I run in the house and I go over to a little family dining room area, and there my father was. He was on top of my brother, biting the dog, just biting him like a pit bull. He had him by somewhere around this area, just biting him. So I grabbed him, my dad, and I snatched him off of him. I said, man, get off of him, you're hurting him. And I remember that. I never will forget that look. My father looked at me with one eye closed and his eyes just bloodshot as can be. And he said, oh, you think you grown, don't you? And I said, Pops, don't do this. And he looked at me and said, oh, no, you think you grown. So I said, and I remember repeating again, man, don't do this. He rushed me. I turned and just pushed him. And he kind of stumbled, but he didn't fall. He stumbled. And he looked at, that same look at, oh, yeah, you grown, ain't you? You grown. And I said, man, don't do this. He rushed me again, but this time I grabbed him head first and I shoved him right into the wall. Boom. He went down. All I heard was like you hear one of those movie laughs. Who was good at it? It was, I can't remember the actor's name, Jack Nicholson.
Oh, yeah, a demonic laugh. Were we thinking about the
He kind of does it too.
Yeah.
You're on the ground, he makes that.
Yeah, I'm thinking about The Shining when you're saying this right now.
So my father gets up and runs in the kitchen and grabs a knife. I run out the front door and I leave again and don't come back for about 2 weeks.
Okay.
So fast forward through all the domestic violence stuff that we lived through as kids. 1986. Now we're all grown, and by then my father and I had a conversation. We had talked about all the shit that he did to me, my brother, because my father used to beat my brother like it was a job.
When your father was being abusive in the home, what was going on? Was he short fused and would just escalate to that space at anything, or was he well? Was there something going on?
I think what it was, Kyonda, it was my father was when he started drinking, he got that way. He would get violent, and I think it was because my mother would confront him because he'd be his girlfriend at the time. We all knew he had a girlfriend. My mother knew he had someone on the side.
Okay.
And I began to know her, or at least know of the relationship, when I was in elementary school in Stockton, because he used to leave to drive to Richmond, and then, could be gone for, a couple days, 2, 3, 4 days, then come home, stay for a day or two, then go right back. So my mom was the first one made it. It was really because she would start jamming him up about his girlfriend. Why don't you just leave and do this and that and the other? And I ain't going nowhere. This is my house. I pay the bills. That type of thing. So that was usually his response when she kind of confronted him.
Okay. So it was the drinking that you feel was like edging him on to be violent in that way.
Yeah, because when he wasn't drinking, I don't remember. I mean, he would get mad. My brother would do something, or he was my father was thinking he didn't want you drinking his sodas. He'd buy like Coke or 7-Up to mix with his drink, and I remember once he bought one. I can't remember which one it was, but my brother drank it.
Okay.
And my mother came home and saw the can in front of my brother. He said, "Your dad's gonna lose his mind," kind of thing. So
Mm.
sure enough, when he came home, my father started screaming at me and my brother because he didn't know who did it. We weren't saying anything at the time. I didn't say anything. My brother didn't say anything initially. Then my father was known for, what he would do to us. What he was take you back in the bedroom or bathroom. He'd tell you take your clothes off.
Oh, really?
Take all your clothes off.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And he just beat us butt naked.
Oh my goodness. Oh my
Um,
goodness.
and
So with that, I know you said later you get into you having conversations with your dad about it, but were you just every day going forward and just moving through this? Did you ever have an opportunity to sit and get it off your chest to mom or anybody else to help you process it appropriately, or were you just holding it inside and just going on about your day with it?
no, I mean, it was like it was life. I mean, that was
Okay.
the way we accepted that was just the way things was.
Okay.
We never got counseling. We never spoke to anyone outside of our own, little circle. And it was really just me, my mom, my brother, my sister. We didn't tell my aunts or uncles, none of my cousins what was going on at the house.
Mm-hmm.
Mama always told us, we take, this is ours to deal with. Don't worry
Yeah.
about it. We'll deal with it.
Yeah.
And and we did. We lived with it. When my father finally moved, he moved out in 1979, the year I graduated from high school. He finally moved out. My mother was able to stay in the house just for a little while. Then when he made her move out, or she moved out, and she ended up going to get her own place, and my brother and sister went with her. By then, I had gotten a few letters in high school, letters of interest from colleges to play basketball.
Okay.
And it was about 4 or 5. My mother kept the letters. I just know I never did. She kept them for a long time. But anyway, just before graduation, I got into a car accident on San Pablo Dam Road. There used to be an old Pussycat Theater, Kit Kat Club
Okay.
back there. And I was driving a 1968 Mustang. It was like 4 or 5 different colors. Primary color was rust,
Mm-hmm.
but I was driving. I was going to go to a girlfriend's sister's birthday party. She had wanted me to go for her little sister's birthday party. So I was driving there, and as I'm driving up San Pablo Dam Road in the number 1 lane, this guy had came out of the Kit Kat Club and turned into our lane and eventually hit us head on.
Oh boy.
He was driving an old Delta 88. It V'd the Mustang to the firewall. My mom was in the front passenger seat. My brother was in the rear passenger seat, and my sister, who should have been about 11 years old at the time, she was in the passenger seat behind me. Because of the impact, and if you know anything about the Mustangs at that time, the dashboard was metal.
Okay.
I hit my knees on the dashboard, and they ended up taking me to emergency hospital because they had swollen up so bad I couldn't walk.
Wow.
And I remember eventually going to the doctors numerous times, and they were talking about possibly putting metal rods in my knees. And I was like, dude, I'm 17 years old, man. I thought I could play basketball in college. And he said, well, if we do this, you can't do that. And I said, well, no, I'm not doing it. So I ended up rehabbing my knee. It took me a long time, and I couldn't go to any of those colleges that made those offers or
Yeah. Yeah.
couldn't go. But there was a coach at Cal State Hayward. He was Coach Staggers. I think his name was Jim, but I'm not positive. But it's Coach Staggers. He invited me up to Cal State Hayward just to see if I could still play. And I wasn't one of those graceful leapers. You know what I mean? Casted like this, easily get off the ground. I was a power leaper. So I had to build up. And of course, with that, your knees and ankles, everything had to be strong, thighs, everything. And I can still get above the rim, but my problem was as soon as I stopped running and I sat down, my knees would swell up again.
Okay.
So I'm sitting there with blocks of ice on my knees, and there's just no way it could happen. I couldn't play like I used to play, like I wanted to play, because there was always discomfort afterwards. Maybe because I rushed it. My mom seemed to think I rushed playing, coming back to play too soon, but I ended up not playing. And I remember, so I went to Cal State Hayward, kind of frustrated. I made it to and I was going through different quarters because Cal State was on a quarter system. I'd be, academically not disqualified initially, but some academic problems because I just was not feeling college at all. I mean, I wasn't interested in it because my father tried to force me, you need to take business administration. Well, I wanted to do drafting.
You wanted to do drafting, you said? I
wanted to be, yeah.
Okay.
He was just, no, you have to get your degree in business administration. This, that, and so, and Cal State Hayward didn't even offer drafting at that time. I don't know if they ever did, but they didn't offer it. So I'm up there and just going back and forth. Got disqualified, went to junior college, got that stuff taken care of, went back to Cal State Hayward. And the only good thing that I can say out of me going to Cal State Hayward, because I didn't graduate, I left. I ended up quitting college after my junior year. I didn't stick around for my senior year.
Okay.
I met my wife.
Okay.
My then girlfriend.
Okay.
In 1982, at Cal State Hayward, she was a freshman, and I was a junior, or just getting ready to go into my junior year. We ended up, and it was kind of funny how we met, because we were in the quad area where all, most of the students would come through, and kind of like the cafeteria, but and I was with one of my friends at the time, Ulysses Maurice, and her name is Terry. Terry was talking to this guy named Charles, and she looked at me, I looked at her, all right, okay. I thought she was an attractive woman, a young lady. And Charles, as she walked away, Charles saw that I had looked at her. And he made a comment to me in front of my friend Maurice, Ulysses. And he said, man, you can't get no girls up here unless you're part of the frat.
Uh-oh.
I said, you can't get no girls unless you're part of a frat. I said, who do you think I said, man, you're a fool. I said, you know what? Not only could I get whatever girl I want up here, I'll get the girl you were just talking to. And he looked at me and he said, okay, we'll see. And I remember, I don't know if it was that same day or later that week. I was down in the gym, by myself, just shooting around. And she happened to walk through the gym. And she looked at me and she spoke. She said, hi there. I said, how you doing? And we started talking. And one thing led to another. We ended up dating for 4 years. And then in 1986, we got married.
Okay.
And that happened to also be the year that my father came to me, threw some papers in my chest. I was living with him, so we were getting along. I was an adult, so we were okay. He threw some papers at me. He said, man, read that. I said, what's this? They said I was diagnosed with that. Read it so you know what it is. My father was diagnosed with Parkinson's.
Oh, boy.
At the age of, he was born at 34, 86, so at 50, Who? No. Was that 48? 50, 34? 34 and 86. That's when he was
Can you
diagnosed.
explain to us quickly what Parkinson's is?
Yeah, Parkinson's is a neurological disorder.
Mm-hmm.
And how it starts off is you'll notice someone who's hand shaking. They call it tremors.
Yeah.
Then there wasn't a cure, and there still is not a cure for it. But my father, you know, since we were living together, and he got to the point where he really couldn't drive a car that well, but he had to go to a specialist. And at the time, the only Parkinson's specialist Kaiser had, he was a Kaiser member, was in Hayward. So I would have to drive my father once a week to Hayward to be seen or treated. And the treatment, they were just trying to get some medication, a slew of medications right to try to slow the progression of the symptoms associated with Parkinson's. So the tremors is beginning, his walk, his gait was affected. He started sliding, shuffling his feet, not picking them up completely. He got to the point, he was still working, but he got to the point where his penmanship was illegible. So my father was a supervisor working for General Services Administration in San Francisco, which is a government entity. They couldn't read his signature any longer. Mm-hmm. So they basically forced him to retire.
Okay.
But the progression of just talking about Parkinson's for a minute, so it went from the tremors to his gait to his speech started to alter. Then my dad he would be drooling. He had to always carry a towel or something with him, you know, because he was uncontrollably drooling. And my dad used to, you know, he was roughly 210 pounds. So as Parkinson's really took a hold of him, he got to the point where he could no longer walk on his own. He had to be assisted because he kept falling. Mm-hmm. He'd fall quite a bit. He lived with me and my wife for a short time when my wife was still trying to finish up her undergrad at Cal State Hayward. We had moved to East Oakland, up there by Oak Knoll Zoo.
Yeah.
Far from there.
So I'm sure that, you know, once you got off into school and living life a little bit, you were able to identify domestic violence for what it was at some point, because it seems like when you were in the home, it was normal and it was kept. Once you started learning about what it is and the different faces of it and the tolls that it probably has taken on different people, did that ever affect your relationship with your dad? And I'm asking because I'm hearing how you were taking care of him in this time, and you had conversations with him about everything. And this sounds like when he moved in, it was early on in the marriage, so that was like probably before you had the conversations with him.
Yeah, it was. We had not talked about what had happened when I was, 17, maybe getting ready to turn 18, but 17 years old in the house, and all of the domestic violence stuff. We had not had that conversation about that. That wasn't until, Terry and I got married in 86, so we probably had that conversation maybe 88, 89. Mm-hmm. And my relationship with my dad, I mean, he was my father. You know, I mean, did we ever do anything like father and sons you would think would do, go to baseball games, stuff like that? No.
Okay.
I remember he took us fishing, my brother and I fishing once. Mm-hmm. And during my childhood, we only went to Disneyland one time, and that was my mother that took us.
Okay.
We never saw anything else. We went back to Louisiana to see my grandparents twice. My father went one time. We drove. I mean, we drove a Buick 225, deuce and a quarter. I remember that. My father drove from California to Louisiana. We stayed with his parents for quite a bit. Then we went and stayed with my mother's parents. And we came back. And the next time we went, my father didn't go with us. My mother flew us back there to see our grandparents. And the only other time we saw my grandparents is if they ever came to California, which wasn't that often.
Okay. Okay.
But, it wasn't until my mid-20s that he and I sat down and I kind of confronted him about all the memories that I had growing up.
Mm-hmm.
And other than my mother, he was the only one that I had ever really shared that much of it with at that time in my life. And he looked at me because, matter of fact, when we had this conversation, we were at his girlfriend's house.
Oh, wow. Okay.
We were at his girlfriend's house. It turns out that his girlfriend lived around the corner from my in-laws, from where my wife grew up.
Okay.
My father-in-law knew my father before I knew my wife.
Wow. Small world. Small world.
Yeah. So I remember we had that conversation, but again, I've been family driven my entire life. That's how my mother raised us.
Yeah.
Family, take care of you. It was always, I remember a couple times when my father beat her, she was like, Daryl, if something happens to me, you take care of your brother and your sister. You take care of your brother and sister. And I remember, that was when she was working 2 jobs eventually, during that time period. She had a full-time job and she had a part-time job. She used to work at Hilltop Macy's. She used to work at GNC inside Hilltop Mall. Mm-hmm. And I used to have to give my sister baths because my mom wasn't there. I helped my sister get a bath. So I realized as I got older, especially after seeing it, of course, as you live it, you see it, you hear about it in the outside world. You don't see it. I didn't see physical abuse like that between a man and a woman outside of my home. I knew that there were arguments. I see my aunt and uncles at the time getting verbal arguments, but never saw anybody put their hands on anyone. I can't say that it didn't happen, but I never saw it.
Okay.
But we came to an understanding, and in his own way, he apologized for what happened during that period in my life, in our lives.
Okay.
But it was the Parkinson's was, I think, it eventually became very humbling for him.
Yeah.
In that he couldn't take care of himself any longer, so he lived with me until and I went to Homicide in 1993 at Richmond PD. My father was living with me at the time, me and Terry in Oakland. And I remember I came home from work one day and my front door was wide open. And I'm looking around, I asked my neighbor, you see my dad? He said, yeah, we saw him kind of shuffling down the street. He had walked out my house, left it open, and we didn't have cell phones at the time, so I didn't have no way of calling, reaching him, so I'm driving around trying to find him. Luckily, the police Oakland PD found him, and ended up bringing him home.
Wow.
So then we made a decision, my brother and my sister and I said, man, he can't stay with me because I'm gone. Terry's at school or at work. We ended up bringing him back to Richmond. He stayed with my brother for a little bit. We ended up hiring somebody to try to help my brother out during the day to take care of him. But then Pops would become, kind of physical towards her because he didn't want her touching him, this, that, and the other.
Oh, my.
But he couldn't really do anything because he was now more or less in a wheelchair most of the time. So he ended up going, to a board and care for a while. But that was one of the funniest things. Even though he couldn't walk well, the board and care was right next door to my in-laws. And so that means his ex-girlfriend's house, she had passed away of cancer now. Her two sons still lived in the house. My father was seen climbing the fence, walked out of the street with next door to my in-laws, and ended up at his girlfriend's house. We didn't know, no one knew where he went until the sons, who still had my number. I didn't know they even had it, but they had one of the boys had my number, and he called me and said that your dad is over here.
Oh my goodness! And he's climbed the fence to get there.
He climbed the fence to get there.
Wow.
And he couldn't remember a lot of things. He couldn't talk well, but he remembered how to get there. And it was only, you can walk there in 6 minutes, 7 minutes.
And she's passed away at this point.
She's passed away.
Okay.
Yeah, she passed away. I can't remember what year that was, but she passed away at this point. And I remember when I knocked on the door and they let me in, I remember he was sitting in the little lounge, living room area. He looked at me and with his eyes wide open, he just with the biggest smile on his face, kind of laughing.
Because he just knew.
Yeah, he's like, man, he looked at me, just laughing, shaking his head. And I just, man, get up, come on, let's go. So I took him back over to the board care that he was staying in next door to my in-laws. But eventually Pops had to go into a skilled nursing home.
Okay.
And he did that one.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because he got to the point where he couldn't eat. Because of the disease, the progression of the disease, he couldn't chew and swallow on his own.
Okay.
So they ended up putting a feeding tube in his stomach.
All right, and you were there every step of the way.
I was there because I was the one that he decided could make the medical decisions for him.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, during that time period as well, after all, when he got into the rehab skilled nursing home, they had to put soft restraints on him because he was pulling his feeding tube out. Now, I don't know why he was pulling it out. Maybe he was ready to die. And that was his way of letting us know. But his disease progressed to the point, Kyonda, where a 210-pound man that was athletic, used to play semi-pro baseball, run track, went down to 98 pounds.
Wow.
So I remember that my later stages, and this was now 2006, I believe. He lived with Parkinson's for 20 years. In 2006, my dad had gone, he had a medical episode, and he up at Kaiser in Vallejo. He was there for a couple of nights, and they were going to be releasing him on this particular day. They called me and said, hey, we're getting your dad ready. We're going to be releasing him. Where are you going to send, we have another place in mind that we would like him to go to. It's covered by his medical insurance. I said, that's fine. I'm okay with it. And it was somewhere in Central County in Concord, Pleasant Hill area, somewhere over there. I said, okay. And at the time, I was working for Contra, Costa County District Attorney's Office.
Okay.
I was a lieutenant over a few of the units there. But I remember getting that call, okay, let me know when you're ready to transport him. About 3-4 hours later, I get a phone call from him. He says, is this Daryl Jackson? I said, yes, it is. We're just calling to know that your father passed.
Ooh.
And then he hung up. And I'm sorry, but I said, what the fuck?
Yeah.
And I called him back. I said, someone just called me and said my dad passed. My name is Daryl Jackson. His name is Tilton Jackson. And it was a lady that answered the phones. I figured it must be the ICU nurse or the nurse at the stairs station. She said, yeah, Mr. Jackson, we're sorry, but your dad passed away. I said, okay, I can deal with that. But what I can't deal with the way this person called to tell me it in the first place.
Yeah,
yeah. And I said, whoever it is ought to be thankful that I wasn't right there in front of him at the time he did it.
Mm-hmm.
So I called my brother and my sister, I called my mom. By this point, they'd been divorced now for 25 years, at least 25 years at this point. My sister meets me at Kaiser Vallejo. They left him in his room till we got there. We sat there with him for a while. My brother showed up. My brother has a hard time dealing with death. He still does to this day. He just doesn't deal with it well. But we buried my father. He was in the military, so we ended up burying him up at the military cemetery in Dixon, up in Dixon, California. That's where his grave is.
Okay.
But anyway,
Yeah.
that was that episode in my life.
That was Father's chapter.
That was the closing chapter with him, and I don't, a lot of people say, well, why did you? Is that the reason why? Or my wife used to ask me, is that the reason why you got into police work and this and that? And I was like, no, it's not.
Mm-hmm.
I said, baby, I got into police work because you and I had gotten married and I needed to make more money. I was working in the probation department. I said the most logical step to me at that time was, well, I'm working at probation. They got me working in units where individuals agreeing to go off to state prison because it was juvenile hall. Because they had me in D unit for the most part and an intake.
Mm-hmm.
I said, I might as well let me go back to the city that I grew up in. So I decided to go to Richmond PD.
Okay.
I applied. They offered me the job, and then they offered me I can start on this date. I remember I left juvenile hall on a Friday, and I started Richmond PD that Monday.
What year was this?
This was 1987.
Okay, so we can look and see now.
I started my background in 1987. They finished it, and I started the academy in 1988. So it was 1988 that I started Richmond PD.
Okay, so we can see that trends of the crime rates changing significantly over time. What was the crime rate or the score even when the overall crime score when you were serving there?
When you have to, you're young, but in the mid '80s, that's when the crack cocaine thing really hit inner cities.
Yeah.
And that's when it hit Richmond PD. It was Richmond, about the mid to late '80s. At that time, Richmond Police Department per capita and its homicide rate specifically were in the top 5 in the nation per capita.
Yeah. Yeah.
So things were real hectic in the late '80s into the '90s in Richmond. There were a lot of shootings, and it was, to me, and Richmond is a small city, you know that.
Yeah.
Everybody knows somebody. And you had, best friends, family, turning on family over a corner. Something like that. That's what I saw, come to realize as I got into the police department. And I was never one of those guys that was known to do a lot of traffic enforcement. I didn't believe in writing a lot of tickets, unless if I wrote you a ticket, they knew you did something wrong. And I remember the administrative judge that heard all traffic stuff. He made that comment one day when I showed up in traffic court. He said, "Officer Jackson, what are you doing here?" I said, "I had to write a ticket, Your Honor." And he said, "Oh, this guy must be guilty." I said, "Yeah, because I hate writing tickets."
Yeah,
So that was that was what I noticed then. And when they finally put me in homicide, I wasn't in homicide initially. I was in robbery assault. I was doing a lot of domestic violence cases and some robbery cases. But I was averaging 5 domestic violence cases a day.
Wow.
And having to follow up on them. And granted, most of the time, the cases didn't go anywhere because the female victim didn't want to pursue charges.
Okay.
For whatever reason.
How was it working with those cases? Were they bothersome at all, or how was it? How was that working in that area for you?
Well, it was difficult because it brought back memories.
Yeah.
I remember the very first time was when I was actually still in patrol. I got this call of a male who had beat this female. Remember, we walked up the stairs. I knock on the door. This male opens the door. Walked inside. I remember then seeing a female turn out to be his wife, and I saw like 3 or 4 kids, little kids. But he had beat her badly. I mean, she was bloodied up in the face and this, that, and the other. And at
There
the
in
time,
front of the kids.
I'm assuming in front of the kids, but she was definitely showing injuries in front of the kids. California was not really pushing the domestic violence cases. It wasn't that you had to arrest somebody for it like it is now. The 275 really wasn't there. You really had to have the female cooperation.
What did you say wasn't there?
The penal code, 273.5 of the penal code.
Okay.
Spousal abuse.
Okay.
But I remember asking her, I said, do you want me to take him? Do you want him to go to jail? And she looked at me and shook her head. And I said, are you sure? And you need to go to the hospital. And she's like, no. And he's laughing. He's over there standing in the corner laughing. He's hearing what she's saying.
Wow.
So she refused to do any press charges.
Why do you think he was laughing? Do you think he was laughing because you guys didn't get to arrest him, or was he just still under whatever influence?
No, I don't think he was under influence. I don't think he was under influence of anything. I think what it was that he knew that he wasn't going to do because he controlled that.
Okay.
He was in control. And that's, I think he was kind of giddy about the fact that he knew he was in control. She wasn't going to, he was the sole breadwinner. She didn't work. She stayed home to take care of the kids. So he was in control of that narrative. So I remember we walked out. I said, come here for a minute. And let me get a call back here again.
How did he respond to that?
He looked at me. Now he ain't laughing no more. All that laugh is gone. All that smile, that smirk is gone.
Yeah.
I wasn't playing with him. And I was dead serious, Kyonda, at the time.
Yeah.
Because I started having flashbacks on my mom.
And did you experience that often, like being triggered with those kind of situations?
No,
I
really, really didn't. I don't know what about this. Maybe it's because him smiling and laughing about it. I never had anyone act that way. Even when I went to a home and the person was being arrested, the woman said, initially said I'm going to file charges against him. I never had to handcuff a man in front of his kids. I always gave him that option. I said, man, you can walk out here like a man and we don't put these handcuffs on in front of your kids, or these handcuffs are going on you. But I'm going to give you an option as a man, how you want to walk out this house. I never had anybody buck that. They all saw it and they said, all right, man, can we do this outside? And we go outside. And I didn't have a problem. Never had a problem. I never handcuffed somebody from their kids on a domestic violence call.
Yeah.
Because part of me was that I knew the kids was already traumatized.
Right.
And I didn't want one of the images or one of their memories to be their father being walked out of the house in handcuffs.
Yeah.
Yeah, so from there, I mean, while I was working that, I had a couple of sexual assault cases that I had to deal with when I was working robbery assault. One was a kidnapping for ransom, rape in front of her kids.
In Richmond?
Yeah, out of Richmond.
Boy.
And I remember on Halloween 1993. Halloween day, I got called into my supervisor's office, the lieutenant, and he said, DJ, I got some good news and some bad news. And I'm thinking to myself, well, damn, they're about to send me back to patrol.
Uh-oh.
That'd have been the bad news. I said, well, what's the bad news? And I said, no, what's the good news? He said, we're transferring you to homicide, effective immediately.
Wow.
I said, oh, okay. I never thought about working homicide. And I never, other than, That's just not was not in my thinking at all. I said, well, what's the bad news? Well, you're on call effective tonight.
Wow.
Halloween.
How do they make that decision?
I don't know how the hell they made that decision. I think what it was, I had done a good job solving my cases when I was in my initial. I've only been a robbery assault for 10 months.
Okay.
But I had done a good job, and I think the more overwhelmingly is because I was from Richmond.
Okay.
So that night I went home. I didn't even think to tell my wife that I had moved. They transferred me to homicide. She was fixing dinner, and I had just started to sit down. Or she called me, and I was in the garage doing something. She called me and said, "All right, dinner's ready." And as I was getting ready to come back into the house, she said, "Hey, you got a phone call?" I said, "I got a phone call." I said, "Who is it?" She said, "Someone said Rock." I said, "Rock? Who the hell was?" Oh, that was a nickname for our lieutenant. His true name was Doug Maples, but his nickname was Rock.
Okay.
And I picked him up. I said, "What's going on, LT?" He said, "Well, come on down." That's how he said it. "Come on down." I said, "Come on down." He said, we got a homicide. This is your first one. You're the lead." I never will forget this. It was 231 3rd Street. That was my first homicide. A guy was killed with an AR-15.
Wow.
Over a dog.
Over a dog.
Over a dog. Dude he tortured him, shot him a few times in a house, a vacant house, shot him a couple times in the leg, so he knew he was torturing him. Then he finished off, shot him in the head when he was finished. I solved that case.
How did you immediately know that he was shot in the legs first, and then later? How do you know that it all didn't just happen simultaneously in one round?
Because you saw the cartridge casings as they got ejected from the rifle, so you knew he used a rifle.
Okay.
Or rifle-ish material, so an assault weapon, because the 223 is considered an assault weapon, assault rifle. And it does not make sense to shoot someone in the head because they're automatically dead, and then shoot them in the legs.
Okay.
At the time, during that era, when some of the shootings we had in Richmond, they weren't trying to kill them; they were trying to warn people, so they shoot them in the legs. Purposely shoot them in the legs.
Yeah.
But this cat was shot in the legs, in each leg. Then I think there was a gunshot wound to a stomach, or somewhere in the upper torso. Then the gunshot wound to his head.
Wow.
But it didn't take long. I think after maybe less than a month or two, I found out who did it, arrested him. He ended up, in lieu of going to trial, he pled guilty. He pled, and he went off to prison. That was my first homicide case. And during my stint of time at Richmond PD, and then ultimately going to Contra Costa County District Attorney's Office. Then after that, going to San Francisco District Attorney's Office. Still working predominantly homicides or officer-involved shootings, investigating those. Because I was tasked with doing that because I had, my reputation was I didn't care who you were. If you did something wrong, you did something wrong. I didn't care if you was a cop. I didn't care if you was a civilian. I didn't care nothing.
Yeah.
Young, old, male, or female. If you were wrong, you were wrong. And so I was chosen to investigate a lot of incidents, especially involving police officers, because I had no problem saying no.
Yeah. Yeah, unbiased.
I was very unbiased.
But
of my 33 years in law enforcement, 24 years of it was being directly involved with homicides or officer-involved shootings or some type of death investigation.
Was it more difficult working homicide, being that when you arrive, you're not dealing with people and all of the emotions that are entailed there? You're going there basically to observe and report and then later go and crack the cases. Was that easier?
No, because Contra Costa County and Richmond Police Department had a policy. On any death investigation, we had to make personal notification to the family.
Oh boy. Okay.
So I had
Okay.
to go. I had to go and do a lot of notifications.
Okay.
So you felt that initial. You evolved from the
Mm-hmm.
emotional side of things from the beginning. Uh, one of my cases of three, I had three child actually infant. My youngest victim was 18 months old.
And a homicide victim.
A homicide victim. He was stabbed to death by his adoptive father.
I think
Uh,
I wonder if I remember that case.
it happened. It happened in the Kennedy Manor.
Okay, maybe this is a different case. Yeah, because there was a woman when I was looking for daycares
Mm-hmm.
for my daughter, and one of the places I went to, it was just something about the place when I went in there to tour to visit it.
Uh-huh.
I just felt something really. It didn't feel right, and so I just it was all night was researching this lady, and I found some news articles where her husband had come in and stabbed her baby to death in the room. And I think something about her son was coming home from the Navy
Oh,
or something. And I saw that case and I just couldn't believe it. And I didn't tell her, what my reservations were. I just moved on. But I just, that was just the most awful thing I had ever read, just the whole details of it. And the baby was there under like foster care or something like that. But
mm-hmm.
I think he may have been a little older than 18 months.
Unfortunately, during my time doing homicides, officer involved shootings, and other death investigations, I've been involved in over 300.
Wow.
Um,
That's a lot.
it's a lot. But again, I mean, the one thing that and today, the only thing, I mean, I'm not a drinker, so I wasn't falling in that trap when I was a cop. I drink socially, but I never, one of those that, I never developed that
Okay.
thing. And, and even with drugs, never tried nothing, never even tried a joint. Not
Wow.
once. Not a cigarette.
That's
But
some willpower for you.
well, willpower and that you also, I had enough experience or exposure in my family and in my extended family, my cousins and everything else. I saw what drugs was doing to you.
Yeah.
My brother was a functioning addict for quite some time, until he decided he wanted to stop, and he did. He did it on his own.
Okay.
But I think, but what all of that did to me was, you wouldn't see me emotional.
Okay.
You would never. I wall myself off from that, and
Mm-hmm.
to my own detriment, because even with my wife, emotionally I couldn't respond in that kind of way. I
Yeah.
wasn't good for her emotionally.
Yeah.
I figured you need to be stronger than that.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
it took its toll on our relationship somewhat, and it was
Is
just.
it just because you weren't responding in a way that was needed? And I'm asking this because I feel like that's probably what happened with me as well, with the different things that I've experienced. There's a lot that I just kind of sit through, and it honestly, I'm aware of what's going on, but I don't have that emotional response. I'm not the person that's going to hug and cry with you. I'm there, I support you, I'll stand in the thick of whatever with you, but you're not going to look at me and be able to tell that I'm experiencing an emotion. And I've had some people rise conflict because of that. They felt like I wasn't present because they couldn't see the emotion. And so, is that what it was for you, that they just couldn't see it and wasn't sure, or were you just not showing up because you didn't feel like it was severe enough for the type of response they were having?
I think it's a combination of both. Like
Okay.
the way you described it initially, yes, definitely. And the way my wife has since talked to me about it, because she talked about all the hurt that was going on during that time, during some of the years of our marriage, the things she was experiencing and didn't feel like she was really getting from me, but she'd make an excuse to herself, like, well, that's just who you were, because she knew some of the stuff that I'd gone through as a kid, but she didn't know it all.
Okay.
I
Okay.
never shared all of it with her. At least not, and it was just in the last few years I've shared everything with her. It was in
Okay.
the last 5 years, actually. Because she didn't come up that way. My wife didn't have that type of parents. Her mother and father were, they'd argue, but they were together. They were thick as thieves.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
so I was there. I was always providing. I wasn't out there chasing. I wasn't out there with other women. None of that. She knew where I was. I was either at work, at my mom's, talking to my mom or my brother or my sister, or at home. And if I was going with somebody, if I was going out someplace, she was always invited to go with me. I mean, it was always, so it wasn't that. But her being who she is, and I'll say she had a better childhood than I did, much better childhood than I did. And when we finally had our daughters, even though it was there was some headache, and there was some heartache in there. But when we had that's been my rock. Those are the ones that I go to.
Okay.
That I admit, because I only have one close friend.
Okay.
I have associate. Everybody else I think of as associates.
Okay.
But even with my wife and I remember when we had our first daughter, back in 1984. That's when my oldest. No, 94. That's when my oldest was born. And I was just getting in homicide. I'd been in homicide about a year. She was with us, and my wife got pregnant again, and we were expecting then our second child soon thereafter. But when I was in homicide, we learned that child was probably going to be born with some disabilities. He had a chromosome 13 deficiency, which means he would have been born with a cleft lip.
Wow. Okay. Okay.
And I remember the doctor, my wife's doctor at the time, was trying to talk us into aborting it because the child would just have all these issues.
Yeah.
And my wife looked at me, and we left there, and we were driving home. We got home, and she said, "What do you think? What are you thinking about?" And I said, "I'm thinking about what the doctor told us." She said, "What do you mean?" I said, "That we should have you should have an abortion." She just put her head down, and tears were in her eyes. I said, "So I don't know what you're feeling. I don't know what you're thinking about, but what I'm thinking is this: we're not going to do that."
Okay.
She raised her head up. She looked at me. She had a smile on her face. I said, "Cherry, if God gave us this child, and we make the decision to take it because someone told us that we would have a lot of challenges as he's growing up, medical issues. It was about money. I'll work hard. I'll work more. I'll work overtime.
Yeah.
We'll get whatever we have to medically." So we decided that she was going to go ahead and have this baby. And when it came time for her to deliver, I remember we went into the hospital. And during that process, they could not find the baby's heartbeat. My wife ended up delivering a child stillborn. And I remember having to sit there, you go through the whole process. You got to give you a death certificate and all this and that. I remember they came out, and Mr. Jackson, we need a name. We hadn't even named him at that point. We didn't have a name.
Wow.
I said, "We need a name for the death certificate." And I sat there, looked at my wife, and I said, "His name is Bernard." That was my middle name. His name is Bernard Jackson. So I drove away that night with a death certificate. My wife had to stay in the hospital. I drove home with a death certificate with my son's footprint on it. And I think that was the first time that I recall ever crying.
Wow. Wow.
As I was driving on 80 from Berkeley back home. And I never, you know, talked about, never shared that with my wife, never shared that with my mother or anybody else at the time.
Yeah.
But he came back, got my wife the next day, and we came on home. Mentally, I knew she had to also cope with it, so I wasn't bringing it up unless she wanted to talk about it. I left that topic alone until she was ready to talk about it, and she eventually did. So we talked it through, and then my youngest daughter, which would have been our last child together, then was born in 1997. So the oldest in 94, our other son was 95.
Okay.
95, 90, beginning, maybe 96. And then my youngest was born later part of 97.
Okay. Okay. With your son, did it, how did you feel when you would think about the fact that you decided to go forward with the pregnancy? Did that offer you any solace knowing that you did I would say the commendable thing to do, or how do you feel about that? Did you have any like remorse in your decision, or?
It was mixed,
Okay.
honestly. And mixed in that, I was like, God, what did I do, or what did we do to deserve this?
Yeah.
Kind of thing. Turns out it was our only son. You know, we didn't have any more kids after the second daughter because my wife just couldn't. Because we didn't start having kids until late. I mean, I was in my 30s.
Okay.
And she's 2 years younger than me. So I think, let's see, in 1994, Tiffany was first. Terry was born in 63. So she was what, 31?
Okay.
Yeah. Terry was 31 years old. So, you know, she was in her late 30s by the time we had Aaliyah, mid to late 30s by the time we had our youngest daughter. So we just didn't. So, but it was, I guess, the other side of that is that I was glad that we made the decision to move forward and let God, and God made that final decision.
Yeah.
So you have to sit there and say, well, that's God's will. We didn't do anything wrong. My wife ate right. My wife ate. Oh my gosh, she's one of the cleanest eaters I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
drives me batty at times.
Yeah. I told you a few conversations with her, and my diet is changed.
Yeah.
So yeah, for sure, for sure.
So that was one of those mixed bags for me. And even to this day, I mean, you can't help but think about some of the decisions you made in life and say, you know what, I'm gonna have to account for that. I know there's going to come a time where I'm going to have to account for that, because I do believe in God, and I do believe that we all, you know, when we die and we go before Him, you know, you're going to be held accountable to some of the decisions that you've made.
You are. You are.
And that's, I think, the biggest thing out of this conversation that you and I are having today is that you and I aren't different in any way, and we're not different from anyone out there who's committed the worst crime. Our difference is that the decisions we made.
Yeah.
That's what binds us.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I've arrested people who appear to be, for all intents and purposes, very religious people.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they've committed a crime or done something that they have to be held accountable for.
Making human mistakes.
They're human, and we're flawed.
Yeah.
Every single one of us are flawed. And I would hope that someone would take from my experiences in my life and just say, you know, no matter what you encounter, no matter what you go through, as long as you get up, and it'll knock you down sometimes, as long as you get up and still try to do the right thing each and every day.
Yeah.
Try to do the right thing. I think it'll be okay. You know, it's you know, I've been blessed. I realize that I'm blessed in a lot of ways. I was blessed to experience what I experienced. and have lived through it without any real adverse reactions. I've done okay as far as my education. I dropped out of college my junior year of college, but when I was 49 or 50 years old, I made this. I went back and I finished.
Okay.
Not only did I finish, I went over to St. Mary's and got my master's.
That's great to hear. I'm glad that you shared that. I didn't know that. At any age, Yeah.
So I got that taken care of.
Okay.
I have 2 daughters that I'm proud of. I was able to put them to private schools unfortunately, because of me working homicide. And when I left Richmond PD out of homicide, I went to the DA's office. They've been trying to get me to come over there and work for them. I went to Contra DA's office, and what did they do? They stuck me back in homicide again. And they gave me every single homicide out of West Contra Costa County to follow.
Of course they did.
They had because they're thinking, DJ, we have no way with your experience. When I left Richmond PD, I solved 85% of my homicides.
Wow.
So
yeah.
They stuck me back in homicide, but it gave me every single homicide to investigate out of West Contra Costa County, from Rodeo up to Kensington. I got every one of them.
You got every one of them. So, so the role of working, in corrections is to protect and serve. What would you say are some of your, I would say maybe most proudest accomplishments with working? Because I'm sure there has to have been some cases or different things, even if it meant stepping in to save someone from something. What were there any moments that made you proud that you'll always remember?
I'll remember how I talked a minister out of an axe.
Out of an axe?
He was chasing this person down the street. He had caught his wife cheating on him.
Okay.
And caught her.
Okay.
In the midst of.
Wow.
He was chasing his cat down the street with an axe in his hand.
Okay.
And I had my gun pointed at him because he was just going to, his thing was he's going to kill this dude.
Yeah.
And I ended up talking to him. I ended up talking him out of that axe.
Okay.
And he's still in Richmond, matter of fact.
Okay.
He's a minister at one of the churches in Richmond. That's one. Other than that, it's just the most satisfying things is solving those homicides so the families could get some closure. I mean, granted, it doesn't bring their loved one back. And I didn't care about the background of the person that was killed. Talking about, man, he was a gangbanger. He knew what was coming. Missed me with all that. Even the worst one, they have family that love them. And that's how I saw it. So when I did something, it was not because of the individual's background at all. It was because of the family. After talking to them and being brought into their emotional, chaos, trying to make sure they at least got some type of closure that way. So one of them I did was the De La Salle. Why am I drawing a name? They did a movie, a little documentary about him. It was done by Discovery Channel. It was Murder Under the Friday Night Lights.
Okay.
Terrence Kelly.
Oh, okay.
They got me in the family. I had a mutual friend. Family reached out to this individual that I knew from high school, junior high and high school. Because Richmond PD had made an arrest, but they didn't have enough they didn't think they would lose the case. So the family asked me would I please follow up on it. And I was working at the DA's office at the time. They asked me would I please get involved, and I did. And I ended up putting the case together that this kid could not be. I knew I had the right person. I knew they arrested the right person, and I had all the witnesses I needed. I got people to cooperate that were not cooperating with the police. I got folks to show up for court. And that's tough to get black folks to show up for trial.
Yeah.
Especially black males. Females easier, black males is tough to get them.
Yeah.
Showed up. So this youngster, Darren Pratcher, it was his name. He was found guilty.
Wow.
First degree murder. So that was one. And Landry Kelly was TK's dad. He raised his son, and the TK was getting ready to go off to college that night. He got killed. He's going to Oregon State on a full ride scholarship for football. One of the other cases that I'm glad I got involved in, and there were quite a few. There were many of them I was glad I did eventually do. But one where I found some police officers that were corrupt. They were taking drugs out of evidence, selling them back on the street, sending them out of state. They had opened up a brothel. This is the Contra Costa County Central Narcotics Enforcement Team.
Wow.
That was my boss, the DA and the chief of inspectors called. I was a lieutenant at the time. And as a lieutenant, I was ultimately responsible for the homicide units, domestic violence, sexual assault, juvenile, and special investigations. So special investigations were against police, elected officials. I was in charge of that, and the California Witness Relocation Program. But I got called in on this one, and they told me that I couldn't tell anybody what I was doing. I was only to tell them, no one else, because if I found that there was some evidence to support the allegation, they knew that a lot of officers could potentially have their careers ruined and or go to prison. But if it was nothing to it, they didn't want the officers to be embarrassed behind the allegation. But it turned out to be very true. But it was only two masterminds behind it. One was an active DOJ commander. The other was a retired Antioch police officer. Ultimately, when that investigation was finished, they both went to federal prison. And that case, and I think what made it so different, even though I was working for the Contra Costa District Attorney's Office, I was a lieutenant at the time, the U.S. Attorney's Office out of San Francisco came in and took over that case, Melinda Haig, with the FBI, because it was law enforcement related. All of it was law enforcement related. But when she came in and told then the DA, Mark Peterson, that they were taking it over, they told Mark, by the way, we're taking Lieutenant Jackson with us.
Oh.
He's gonna be working this case, finishing this case up with us, and he'll be a special agent assigned to the FBI for the remainder of this investigation. And I did. They let me finish it. I ended up leading most of the interviews with younger FBI agents in the room with me and the U.S. attorney, and we ended up sending those cats to federal prison.
Okay.
What they did. So I felt damn good about that one.
Yeah.
Because these were some corrupt cops that were doing dirty things to people, dirty things to people. But there were a lot of cases like that. I felt good about a lot of them when victims came up. It's good when you have, especially a live victim, who comes back and thanks you.
Okay.
Or hugs you crying because they're so emotional. It's like an emotional dump for them.
Yeah.
Those times make you good. But there were times, of course, and you felt bad because your victims were children. I had some people that were just destroyed because their child was lost. The one that I told you, the 18-month-old that was stabbed, but I also did one where it was Christmas Eve and the guy just on 80 outside of Pinole, as they were going, she thought they were taking her and the kids to go Christmas shopping at the Toys R Us. It used to be in Pinole, up there off Fitzgerald.
Yeah. He
instead poured gasoline on her just before the 8 p.m. turn off and lit her on fire.
Oh, man.
She was in the passenger seat of the car.
While they were driving?
While they were driving. He
was willing to burn with her?
No. He had the gas. She didn't even know he had the gasoline. He didn't know where she lived. That's how fearful she was. But she had a child by him and she had a child by somebody else. Both the kids were with her. She met him at a location. She willingly got in the car with him. Thought they were going to go Christmas shopping. But she didn't know that he had stopped off and filled up a plastic container and had filled it with gasoline. So as they were driving in the car, he pours gasoline on her. The plastic container rolls under the seat. The liquid spills out. And as he lights her, flame travels to the back seat where the kids are. The kids are both burned alive in the back seat.
Oh my goodness.
It got so hot that the kids imploded.
Oh my
It
goodness.
blew from the inside out. I never will forget that knucklehead's name. His name was Mark Fergay. I never will forget his name. Mark then jumped out of the car. His hands are burned. Maybe his forearm or some area is burned. But he then, as people pull over to try to help, he carjacks somebody. He jumps in their car and leaves, drives off. The female miraculously survives.
Wow.
But she is in a burn unit for quite some time.
Okay. Okay.
She's burned over 80% of her body. That's why it was a miracle. No one usually you don't survive when you have that type of burn.
Yeah.
But I remember when she came out of her coma, an induced coma. She had started off at Doctors Hospital San Pablo because that was one of the best burn units around. She ended up over in San Francisco, and I was tasked with going over there to interview her with accompanying Pinole police detectives. Since it initially happened in their jurisdiction, I was called in at the tail end of the investigation. So we went over there to interview her, and I remember sitting in her room, and Kyonda, you can see the flakes because they had opened up the curtain, and you can see the flaking floating in her room from her.
Oh.
And this is not an exaggeration. I saw pictures of her prior to, an attractive woman.
Yeah.
The aftermath of that, she looked like E.T.
Wow.
She looked like E.T. And she woke up to her children's urns being in the windowsill next to her.
Did she know they had passed away before?
She didn't. No.
No. Okay. Okay.
Witnesses say that when she was on fire, she was yelling, "My kids, my kids." This is when she was on fire on the ground. She was still in flames. They're trying to put her out. She said, "My kids, my kids," but it was too late. No one could get to them.
That's the thing with domestic violence. You literally don't. It can go short or it can go very long. You literally have no idea who you're dealing with.
That's right, and you can go. It can go real bad real quick. So those are the. I mean, like I said, when I say I've been involved in over 300, it's been over 300 homicide or death cases.
Yeah.
But those are the ones that stick out in my head the most because not only did we have to do personal notifications, I had to sit through every autopsy.
Okay.
So I'm there as the doctor, as pathologist, is cutting the body open, doing this procedure. And I'm not behind glass. I'm standing right next to them as they're doing it.
Is that just to take a report?
That's to document the things that you see.
Okay.
The doctor cut they do a cut, cuts the skull, and then they do a Y cut. So you're noting anything different about the body. If there were gunshot wounds, where they were approximately, stab wounds, where they were approximately, burn marks, where they were approximately, the condition of the body. You're noticing all that, the clothing that the person was wearing. You're documenting that for court purposes, for testimony purposes.
Okay. Okay.
So, I thought those things. So I have all those memories. I don't remember. I don't remember many names anymore, but I remember damn near every autopsy I attended.
That's a lot. That's a lot.
That's a lot. And one of the things that my oldest daughter, when she graduated from college, she of course went for psychology. She went to Mills College in Oakland. She came back to me and said, "Dad, I'm going to tell you something." I said, "What?" "Don't take this the wrong way." She said, "But I think you have PTSD. She said, "I think you suffer from PTSD."
Okay.
And I said, and at the time I've heard the term. What's that mean? And she told me, and I looked at her. I said, "Ain't nothing wrong with me." She said, "No. If you think about how you respond to certain things and how you can be," she said, she says, I remember her telling me, she said, you've been a hell of a father. We didn't want for nothing, and you were always there for us, no matter what. I said, "But you need to talk." She said, "You need to talk to somebody." and I promised her a couple of years ago that I would. I haven't done it, but
You haven't done it yet?
No.
Will you do it?
I said I would.
Okay.
And eventually I will. You know, I mean, I've come to grips with a lot of that. As you well know, I recently was forced to retire.
Yes.
When the company decided it was not downsizing, but cutting back.
Yeah.
And they got rid of me because they can hire somebody younger, pay them less money than what they're paying me. So that's been an adjustment for me. I'm still trying to adjust to being retired.
Okay.
But as you know, I took up piano lessons.
Right.
About a year and a half ago now, I think. And that's been kind of like my outlet. You know,
Okay.
I get in front of I bought, so you can see, I got 2 keyboards behind me now. I've got one in my family room, and I've got one upstairs in the master bedroom. So
Okay.
I've got 4
Okay.
keyboards now, so that way I don't have an excuse not to practice.
And music is
Sit there and
therapy.
sing. Yeah,
Music is definitely
it's
therapy.
great therapy. I found a good instructor. His name is Sam Rudin. He's in Berkeley. I go see him. And everybody says, "Oh, you need to keep yourself active. You know, you need to read, or you need to do this, da 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 da." Because you sit there idle, you might develop dementia or whatever. And I was like, I'm not a reader. I'm never going to pretend to be a reader. I can't stand. If I sit there and start to read something, I'm doing it.
You dozing off.
I'm dozing off. But at the piano, he writes songs for me. I'll tell him a song that I like the one we're still getting ready. We're starting to finish up. The Luther Vandross, If Only for One Night. He takes it and then simplifies it to my level. He doesn't make it where it's like one key at a time. He makes sure you use both hands and you're using chords.
Okay.
And he incorporates the melody in it. But he does it, he writes it to where I have to work on it. I keep working on measure by measure by measure by measure by measure, and then I go back and I play the whole song for him.
Okay.
And he thinks that I played it well enough. And he used to be a professional piano player, keyboardist. So when he sees that I have accomplished what it is he wanted me to accomplish, we go on to the next song. And but he also makes it a little more challenging each time. So I know when we finish this song, he didn't have me doing chord training, which most musicians don't play, read notes. They don't read music. They read chords. So we're going to start concentrating on doing more and more chord work here in the future.
Okay.
So that's my outlet. I still only have. I'm still not a drinker per se. I think the last time I had a drink was spring, summer of last year. I just don't have that need. I will go out and buy stuff. If I want it, I'll go out and buy it. When I was working my other job, whatever I wanted, I go get it.
Yeah.
I think that would be one of my flaws.
Okay.
I wouldn't tell my wife anything. I would
just go get it.
A few times saw expensive cars or trucks, and she would just stand there and look at me.
Yeah. You get like a really good dopamine release when you do that. I learned through therapy a trick for that is go in these stores and you fill your cart with stuff, and then you go up and then you just leave it there and go to your car. Your brain doesn't know that you haven't bought it, and you get the same reaction. Yeah. And I've done it a few times. I've stopped doing it because it's like I start thinking about people having to put all that stuff back.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking. So I can even do it with like a couple things. And the way the brain works, like it works now too with online shopping. Your brain just adapts. So I sometimes fill my cart up with stuff, and I'll go all the way to checkout. And in those moments, I don't know that I'm going to leave it, but then I'll think about it like, just close the window out. And your brain doesn't know. You still get that same feeling. It's not coming in the mail, but
that makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah.
When I got forced retired, I stopped I don't just go out and buy anything. I really, because now I'm honest with myself, I don't really need it. It's just something I just want. If it's something I just want, I can let it go. If I need it, I need it. Or really, I spend more time now. My daughter, my oldest, is in school in North Carolina. I pay her rent. So making sure that she doesn't have to work, or making sure she's got everything she needs out there. Making
Yeah.
sure my youngest, if she needs anything, she's here with us, but she's finishing up her master's now. She'll be finished in March or April. She told me
Yeah.
she's finished. She's on her last semester. So I'm just making sure they're good. I mean,
Okay.
that's all. And of course, my wife wants to. Now she wants to travel.
Okay.
She really wants to travel. And now, after all these years, hell, we've been married. We'll be married 40 years in August. And like I said, we've been together since 1982. So
Y'all locked in, as they say.
yeah. It's that till death do us part means something.
Yeah.
So we locked in on that. But it's just trying to find whatever it is that's left that you can give back and be happy.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
and try to help those around you as best you can. Or at least providing advice that is something that is useful to them.
Yeah. And you don't and that's something else. You don't have to do anything, especially if you have positioned your life to where you're okay if you don't go and work and do X, Y, and Z. It's okay to not have an agenda of things to do every day. That, I think that's like one of the goals in life. If you have to work, to provide, to be in a position when you are retiring where you don't have to. You don't have to. You can get up and do what you want to do. You can heal, do your music. You can support your family, walk
But
your dog, and that's okay.
And I think once we move from here and go overseas, I'll be kind of more forced to do that because we'll be new. I'll be learning the language. I'm gonna take Spanish because I think we're gonna end up in Spain.
Okay.
My wife wants to look at 5 different locations, but I think we're gonna end up in Spain.
Yeah.
Well, wherever we end up, learn the language, learn the culture, meet new people, experience probably some biases here and there, but okay. But at least I won't have the same expectation there as I do here.
Okay. I have a last question for you.
Go.
Because I had a friend that was trying to become a cop at a point, and he was going through a lot during the process. It was very stressful, lots of conversations, like every other day, just worry. And he eventually got. I was wondering, maybe I just don't know. Is there a readiness program for people? And if there isn't, is that something that you could see yourself like starting of something like that? Because and actually, I had 2 friends. One friend didn't get to make it because they dug in her background and found a lot of stuff that her mom was in, and someone just gave her intel that was the reason why her family, it was just too much, and so didn't work out. It was so I'm thinking if a person is young and their background is not straightforward, is there a program to where they know, let's just say from high school or a little while after, I want to join the police force at a certain point? What do I need to do now to prepare myself? What do I need to have in place if a person's not like you and able to do that type of work without mentally like breaking down? Like, is there something out there for a person to kind of mentor up with?
They do have,
go ahead.
like a lot of the young men and women who want to get into law enforcement find the Police Explorer program. Some of them don't want to do that because they don't want their friends knowing that they're thinking about being cops.
Okay.
Usually, so it's those type of things. Junior colleges are good. I know Contra Costa College has their Administration of Justice program there. I know Laney has it, Merritt has it, Chabot has it, Los Madonnas has it, Napa has those programs.
Okay.
Where it allows you the opportunity to at least learn about policing. But I can't think of any specific group or unless it's so like you know me. You may tell me about somebody. This happens a lot. Someone had a D. Can I have my son? Recently I had a friend call me. His son wanted to be a cop. His dad is an ex-con. He spent double-digit years in prison. But we're friends. We've been friends since junior high school. He had a son call me, and his son is now a cop here locally.
Okay.
So, I do that, and I don't have a problem doing that because I think that communities are better served if you are from the community.
Yeah.
I really do feel that. Because one, you're used to the environment first and foremost, and 2, you'll be sympathetic to what the person's going through. because you may have done that. You may have been there yourself. You may not share that with everybody, but at least you'll be a little more susceptible to that. But there's also some of those blacks who forget where they come from. You know what
Exactly.
I mean? They treat people like, they let I'm sorry, but they let the influence of white males and that badge overwhelm their senses and their common sense, and they start treating people badly.
Okay.
Because you do have, they realize you do have some authority as a cop. You can ruin somebody's life.
Yeah, you can.
By your own actions, So I don't mind talking to people. I've been invited to do that in a number of places, churches, at the PAL building, high schools. Hell, I even was chosen to be a speaker at Bolt Hall at UC Berkeley.
Okay.
So I've done that, and that's something my daughter said I should probably think about trying to do.
Yeah, I don't know. When you were talking, I was just thinking about that. You can have just your own like consulting place where you can, mentor or kind of walk them through the process. Because even like people coming from like rough backgrounds, I think at a point they should start thinking about cleaning up their environment. So when they do start interviewing neighbors and home, there's not a lot of stuff that would bar you. So I don't know. Maybe you can think about it.
No, I think it'd be something that'd be rewarding. 'Cause all you do, if you can just turn one person around, I provide assistance to one person, positive outcome, and that's a great day.
Yeah,
that's a great day. And you're right. They have to start sooner rather than later, because it's different when you apply for a job. They only can go back 7 years and look at your criminal history.
okay.
But when you apply for a cop or firefighter, they go back and look from the age of 18.
Okay.
Since you became an adult.
Yeah.
They have access to all your criminal background when you sign that waiver, and they get your fingerprints.
Okay.
So you have to be able to account for everything that's gone on wrong in your life. And if you have some family members that are still out there doing things, I did when I was hired at Richmond PD. Richmond PD's part of their practice, they do polygraph exams. They do lie detector tests.
Okay.
So they want to know about everything. They ask you all these questions. So you have to be prepared on how to answer that, and your thought process. When one of my first assignments after patrol was personnel recruiting and backgrounds for Richmond Police Department, and what I used to always ask people: when did you decide that you wanted to be a cop? Because you can tell me you did coke, you can tell me you did this or that, as long as you ain't did a murder or rape or something like that, we can have a conversation. If you did drugs, we can still have a conversation, because you decided you want to be a cop.
Yeah.
Did you stop all of that? And I was able to get people in that 2-3 years prior they were doing coke. The only hard one was there's one that can be reintroduced into the body as you lose fat. Not heroin. It's a psychedelic drug. LSD.
What is it?
LSD.
And it can be reintroduced?
It can be, because it metabolizes into fat. So if you happen to start losing weight, it can be reintroduced into you, and you can have an effect.
Wow.
From that. So you imagine someone who's coming off of that, and you have a gun, or you're driving a patrol car at a high rate of speed.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. Those are things I had to consider that. But if you were a domestic violence suspect, or you did a petty theft, we can talk about those things.
Okay.
You know what I mean? As long as your prior crime wasn't one of violence, because if you committed a felony, some felonies as an adult, you can't carry a gun.
Okay.
So there's some things that could prohibit you from doing it, but I wouldn't mind doing that at all.
So much for your time today. This was great information. Is there anything that you want to leave us with before we close out? Any last words of encouragement or anything you want to share before we go?
I think I would say, do not be afraid to go after whatever your dreams may be. No matter what your prior background is, as long as you've made a decision in your life to turn things around and you want to achieve certain things, You may have to step away from the negativity.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you may have to leave some friends behind.
Mm-hmm.
Because we all know certain relationships does nothing but bring you back down.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, as Black people, some of our history is that we're like crabs in a barrel. We can't stand to see another person make it.
Yeah.
So the other thing that I would encourage, especially Black males to do, and now somewhat Black females as well, but get out of Richmond.
Okay.
Go see something different.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was amazing when I was coaching Powell. These kids were excited to go to Bakersfield. They never been to Richmond.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we go do a tournament in Bakersfield of all places, and they were excited. Oh, this wow.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I remember telling a lot of young Black males, you know, that I dealt with in the police department, hey man, you need to get yourself out of Richmond. Go see something different. Go do something where they don't know you. Start fresh in a new environment.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, nowadays that might be a little difficult because of our current political environment, but I still encourage go travel to one other country.
Okay.
See what life is like there. Either it'll make you more appreciative of here, or it'll make you jealous of what could be, and you realize you're settling. Don't settle for just a mundane life. Strive for it to be the best life possible, because when you get older, all you have to do is look back and say, damn, I wasted a lot of time.